Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here, and welcome to my review of the Campfire Audio Alien Brain. And no guesses as to why it's been called the Alien Brain. It is a very catchy and appropriate name, I think, because these shells do look like alien brains. Or at least the heads of aliens, or the skulls of aliens, right? I feel like the alien skull would have been a more appropriate name, but of course that doesn't sound as, as catchy as Alien Brain. Okay, with that being said, so let's talk about its design. So it's a striking mix, I think, of PVD coated black stainless steel and the shiny Alien Brain dome, which does reveal a bit of the internal wiring. So it does have a bit of a sci-fi flair going on. Much smaller shells than what you get from Campfire usually, which does mean that you get a snugger fit and that of course minimal fatigue as a consequence. Now it does come in with both 3.5 and 4.4 mm time stream cables and a USB-C dongle DAC, which is awesome. So you can use the dongle DAC cable on in a pinch if you want to sort of avoid carrying in a separate dongle. The dongle DAC can process 32-bit 384 kilohertz. It also comes with a leather case, multiple ear tips, cleaning tools, and a cloth. Okay, now this is perhaps, in terms of sound, let's talk about sound now. This is perhaps Campfire's most mainstream tuning till date, although it does carry the brand's unmistakable sonic character, which is to say that it's lush, yet purposeful. Now, it's not exactly Harman tuned. Its upper mids, again, are not as, protruding as Harman, which is amazing. But in balance, its bass and upper mids do to some degree, convey the kind of balance you expect from Harman tuned fare. To now dive deeper into bass, the Alien Brain has a very confident, satisfying low end, which walks the line between musicality and control. The dual magnetic driver contributes to deep sub-bass extension, and you feel the physicality of the sub-bass, but it's never bloated. There is a subtle mid-bass lift that conveys some flair to kick drums and bass guitars, and you get a bit of growl, and it doesn't, however, overshadow the rest of the spectrum. And the rumble is just very noticeable on cinematic tracks and soundtracks and electronic genres. But like I keep saying, it has this wonderful ability to not spill over into the mids. I would say it's far less clinical than the Monarch MK3 and the T Audio IEMs, which sound very clinical and dry. So it's not a dry sounding bass. I do think that the Alien Brain bass is a little more, mid-bassy, which is usually what Campfire able to achieve. It doesn't really sacrifice mid-bass for sub-bass, and thereby it avoids dryness in the bass. Okay, mid-range. This is where the Alien Brain shows a bit of personality. The mids have a very subtle dip. It's not a scoop per se, but it's a dip, and it does make vocals sound ever so slightly recessed, which is just lovely because I love that vocal recession myself. It makes for more pleasant and smooth and all-day fatigue-free listening. That said, male vocals come through with impressive body, texture, warmth, and note weight. And instruments like pianos and cellos and saxophones sound very, very full and organic. The timbre across the mid-range remains natural. It's just warm enough to feel inviting without being muddy. There is, however, a touch of upper mid emphasis, which adds presence and clarity to vocals, but it's not enough to make it harsh. And it's not the final word on clarity, but that's what it is. Treble is where Campfire shows its chops because Campfire is usually able to experiment with how it does treble. It's extended, it's clean, there's a lot of energy on air frequencies, which adds shimmer to cymbals, strings, and showcases a whole lot of ambient details. The sense of space and stage is stunning. It makes the presentation exciting and detailed, and if you're sensitive to 10 kilohertz, it could verge on fatigue for you, but it doesn't for me. But I would say the treble tuning is a lot more safer than a lot of other Campfire offerings. It just adds articulation, It's not piercing. It's just precise. you just, because of this treble, you get a lot of subtle textural cues like breath in vocals or even brush strokes on snare drums, And the treble offers this, this very beautiful and radiant soundstage, right? Because it's got solid width and depth. I mean, it's not an exaggerated out of the head experience, but there's enough room for instruments to come through and shine. Layering is precise. And yeah, I mean, you can distinctly place instruments left to right, front to back, and you get some height. I do think there are IEMs that can perhaps do imaging better, like the Sennheiser IEMs. But I do think for what it does in terms of soundstage and imaging, it's very impressive. And then I do want to talk about dynamics, guys. Macro dynamics are impressive. There's a fair amount of punch. EDM and rock tracks are fun. When Campfire wants to give you punch, they give you more punch than most other brands can. And it tends to be very tempting, very inviting, a lot of fun. And it definitely delivers punch. And you also get microdynamics, so you get a sense of the soft decay of a guitar pluck or breathy vocal inflections, and all these are handled with a lot of nuance. So yeah, I mean, for resolution, microdynamics, it's top notch for the price. $1,000, is a pretty competitive price point, and Campfire does deliver. So guys, I mean, in terms of pros and cons, I would say it is a stunning and durable design. It's got a deep textured bass. I love the detailed airy treble. And of course, it's got a built-in DAC. And if you want to talk about its cons, I do think the 10 kilohertz peak can be somewhat fatiguing to many. But overall, guys, this is, I think, a very, very interesting take on what an IEM should sound like from Campfire. And Campfire keeps hitting it out of the park every time they make an IEM. And every IEM sounds different from every other IEM, thereby necessitating that one starts to collect each and every one of them, because it all sounds so good and so different. So this, I think, is Campfire's most, in many ways, safest tune IEM. The 10 kilohertz really isn't as bothersome as it might appear on the graphs. But yeah, I mean, there's always EQ. There's always a certain amount of warming up you can do with sources and tips and cables. But overall, I think it's a very impressive effort from Campfire. So kudos to Campfire for this. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for my next one. Bye-bye.